The first steps to regaining trust. Yes, we spent too much. Yes, we also rebuilt the public realm. And no, our spending on schools and hospitals here didn't cause Lehman Brothers to go bust in New York, but we could and should have prepared for tougher times. We could and should have regulated the banks far more effectively, and we could and should have used the good times to develop a more balanced approach to wealth creation. One less reliant on property and financial services in the southeast, and more driven by exports and engineering in the north, the Midlands and Scotland. However, for many people, the Labour Party has issues of trust that run deeper than their misgivings about our economic responsibility. Because from my conversations on the doorstep, before, after and throughout the general election, I get the sense that people do not think we understand what I would describe as the country's three most cherished institutions, or if you prefer, the three aspects of life which ultimately all political projects must seek to improve: work, family, community. And I believe if we could demonstrate we understand their modern condition better than the Conservatives, we may begin not only to develop a political strategy for this Parliament, but also to answer who and what we are for. However, with each, I feel we currently suffer a credibility gap that damages our broader relationship with the British people, denying us the chance to articulate our transformative ambitions, whether on education, social mobility, health, or eradicating poverty. And what's even more depressing is that during the last 5 years, I think we did develop the radical policies which could have granted us a hearing in these three crucial areas. The work of Lord Adonis on growth and regeneration, of John Cruddas and the IPPR on social renewal, of Sir Richard Leese, Jules Pipe and Sharon Taylor on local government innovation. Commission after commission came back with radical reforming agendas. We did not lack for ideas. What we lacked was political courage. In our strategic straitjacket, we refused to accept them, to make the argument for them, or to build them into a new sense of mission. Perhaps the biggest of these failings was on work. We just did not seem to understand that ambivalence, or even hostility, towards businesses would translate into a deep anxiety with their workers. We lacked a bold welfare reform agenda based on Labour values with which to counteract the Tories' punitive cuts. We gave the impression we were against every and any new idea. We offended the British people's sense of fairness by appearing to oppose the benefits cap of £26,000 a year tax-free. Rachel Reeves was right. We should be the party of work, the party that aspires to a universal entitlement for work, not the party that delivers a universal entitlement to welfare. And to borrow a phrase, the party that is just as tough on worklessness as it is tough upon the causes of worklessness. Because the truth is, the Tories have an incredibly deficient agenda when it comes to welfare reform. Everything they do is motivated by saving money. A little cut here, a snip there, but no coherent reform, no fundamental rethink of the principles that sit behind the 21st century welfare state, no sense of restoring fairness, no sense of recognising contribution, no sense of rewarding work. I believe Labour can and must seize the initiative here, go back to Beveridge, begin to restore the contributory principle. More important than ever in an age of mass migration, as a sense of unfairness about welfare contributes to resentment towards new arrivals. The rule should be, you pay more in, you get more out. Because right across the world, countries with an entitlement-based system such as ours are gripped by diminishing social support for the welfare state. Whereas in countries that recognise contribution, like the Netherlands and Austria, consent remains absolutely stable. The IPPR's Condition of Britain report proposed big reforms to restore the principle of contribution, too much of which ended up on the cutting room floor. We should establish a clear principle with out-of-work benefits. If you have a strong record of work, you should receive more help and protection for your home when you fall on hard times. And I think if we move the welfare state in this direction, then you will also see an impact in people's concerns about immigration. But we also need a similar game-changing breakthrough on community. Ed Miliband had a big devolution agenda. He understood that handing power back is not just about local decision-making democracy, but about meeting the great challenge of our time. Rebalancing the economy, raising productivity, tackling inequality. But the truth is that we collectively did it. The shadow cabinet was not united. And when the government devolved extra powers to a Labour council in Greater Manchester, the Tories effectively stole our clothes. Now, the Northern powerhouse did not exactly translate to a corresponding Northern breakthrough for the Conservative Party, but it sure as hell helped them hold the line. So we must not let the Tories steal this agenda. Our history of municipal gas and water socialism gives us a deep localist heritage. In Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, it was progressives who built a vibrant civic democracy, confronted vested interest and private property, and created the great age of Victorian and Edwardian civic pride. But both parties then colluded in the century of centralisation. Too often, we have allowed the command and control culture of our statism to poison the community well. Labour needs to win the race to hand power back to people and local communities. Yet even more important, radical devolution must surely form a big part of our answer to the rise of nationalism, both in Scotland and in England. One of the challenges of contemporary politics, I think, is that in the era of global competition and rapid technological change, you must use every last drop of available power to spread fairness and opportunity to the powerless. Yet at the same time, people need power to reside closer to them, to feel a deeper connection with those responsible for the decisions that affect their lives. A modernising approach to devolution must be about growing local pride and local prosperity, and using both as a way of empowering people to come together and transform their community. We are one of the most centralised countries in the world. Practically nowhere else in the world does the capitals of finance, culture, commerce, politics, media, fashion, sport, even gardening all reside in one city. But this is about more than the powers of local government, and indeed the Labour Party's approach to community. It is about the integrity of the United Kingdom itself. The Labour Party can no longer ignore the deep questions concerning English representation. And that starts with big and bold English devolution. Because Devo Max shouldn't stop at the Scottish border. If it's good for Scotland and Scottish business, it's good for England too. And we do need a Devo Max settlement for England. We must shelve our timidity, match the Tory offer, and go beyond it by giving city and county regions the power to vary local taxes, including business rates from a baseline which takes account of regional disparities of wealth. We need English councils and English cities slashing business rates, attracting investment, cutting red tape, setting up their own enterprise zones. Finally, on family, we also need a radical agenda in order to regain the trust of the British people. All the evidence shows how stable, loving family relationships are absolutely crucial to child development, early education, and lifelong well-being. The impact of those nurturing relationships in the early years, so brilliantly captured by Robert Putnam's new book, Our Kids, cannot be overstated. In fairness, I do think we put forward a credible, pragmatic offer to strengthen family life at the general election. Yet it was nowhere near enough to compensate for the historical deficiencies of our approach towards the family. Nowhere is this truer than in the belief that child poverty can be solved largely or even entirely through material redistribution. It is clearly deficient to believe the whole complexity of 21st century social problems facing modern families, from domestic abuse to crime, alcoholism and child neglect, can be solved purely through tax and transfer. For too long, this approach has bloated our welfare system. We spend as much on redistribution as the famously egalitarian Scandinavian countries, but with far, far less effect. We need institutions that tackle inequality at source by raising parents' opportunities to work, children's opportunities to learn, and families' opportunities to plan their time together. We need to wean ourselves off the monetary sticking plaster that take effect too late. The IPPR Condition of Britain report proposed a radical childcare package which would revitalise Sure Start centres, substantially raise the quality of the early years workforce, and make 15 hours a week free childcare available to working parents of all children between the ages of 2 and 4 all year round. Free childcare all year round for every working family. Such ambition would not come cheap. The IPPR suggested it would mean hard choices like freezing child benefit for school-aged children. But if we are serious about public service reform, serious about early intervention, boosting maternal employment, unlocking growth potential, tackling inequality, raising educational standards, and making Labour the party of family life, then we need to have these grown-up conversations during this contest and take these tough decisions. We need to be big, bold, brave, and above all positive. Because whilst the politics of caution, calibration, and fear may win you the odd Pyrrhic victory, in the long run, they are always found wanting. So these are the challenges and the issues which the next Labour leader needs to confront. An inclusive Labour project which appeals to lost voters in Scotland, traditional Labour communities, and to marginal seats. But one in which the entire United Kingdom can have confidence. A marriage between New Labour's desire to back wealth creators with Ed Miliband's urgency to tackle inequality. A new political landscape of family, community, work, and national identity at its heart. It is a leadership that prioritises the organisational changes the Labour Party desperately needs, transforming our industrial model of party management, born of the 1890s, into something that resembles the modern world, more digital, embedded in civic society, better funded. And it is a leadership hungry to project an optimistic future vision of Britain, confident about its ability to manage the challenges of mechanisation, globalisation, climate change, and an ageing society. The way in which that Labour leader is chosen needs to reflect the seriousness of the crisis in which our party finds itself. We need a debate that is open, vigorous, iconoclastic, fraternal, and systemic. We need more of the demos, the individual members, supporters, and affiliated supporters who make up our party. And we need less dictation by individuals and individual factions that still seek to wield influence that is both disproportionate to what they deserve and contrary to the egalitarian principle of one member, one vote. I want party members, registered supporters, and affiliated supporters from the trade unions to have an effective choice about Labour's future. And 'tis why this morning I am announcing that I will not be entering the race to be leader of the Labour Party. Like other potential candidates in recent days, I've made a lot of calls to potential supporters among my parliamentary colleagues. I found that the bulk of MPs are already committed to just a couple of candidates. It is surprising, I think, that the nomination process to select a leader for at least the next 5 years appears to have been largely decided within at most 5 days of a devastating general election defeat. But it is clear to me that I do not have sufficient support to be certain that I can run for the leadership myself. And it is also clear to me that in trying to gather the names I need, there is a real risk that I might help restrict the choice for the party. And that is not a risk I am prepared to accept. So instead, today, I'm offering my endorsement to my colleague, Liz Kendall. I've known Liz for 20 years, and she has shown in the past 20 months she has the confidence and courage to lead our party. I believe she has learned the right lessons from our time in office and in opposition. She is open to the big challenges confronting our party and our country, and I believe she is the right leadership mettle to lead Labour. The most important choice for Labour is not just who leads us into the challenges ahead, but how we are led. The most important choice I have had to make today is not whether I run for the leadership or how to advance a career in shadow cabinet. No, it was how to get a candidate who understands the challenges ahead on the ballot paper for September. I have made my choice. I hope it turns out to be one which opens up a